In a magical world called Halkajinia at the Tristan Academy for Magicians, Louise de la Valliere heads to class on her first day as a second-year student. Her teacher asks her to perform a simple spell. To change pebbles into brass, though her peers mock her with the nickname Zero. As soon as she casts the spell, the room explodes. Despite being from a famous magician family, Louise has a 0% success rate casting spells. On the day of the familiar summoning ceremony, Kirch summons a fire salamander, Gitch summons Verdandi, a large mole, but Louise summons a human being, Seito Hiraga, from Tokyo, Japan, who cannot understand what Louise is saying. Louise is disappointed but cannot break the ritual's tradition, so she makes a contract with Seito by kissing him, and runes appear on his left hand. Louise tries to shut him up by performing a silent spell which backfires and allows Seito to speak and understand Louise's language. Seito thinks he has been kidnapped until he sees the two moons in the sky, and realizes he is in another world. Seito must now deal with being Louise's familiar, and he is often whipped for being disobedient. In the morning, Seito dresses Louise before they go to breakfast where Seito only gets a piece of bread and meets a kind maid, Siesta. Unhappy with the arrogance of nobles, Seito mocks Gitch's two-timing nature, so Gitch challenges him to a duel. Despite being severely beaten up by Gitch's summoned brass golem, Seito refuses to back down. Impressed, Gitch tosses him his sword to give him a chance. The runes etched on Seito's hand begin to glow the moment he touches the sword, enhancing his strength and speed, and giving him sword skills, and he easily defeats Gitch. However, he soon collapses after the fight from fatigue. Mr. Colbert and the headmaster Osmond suspect Seito may be a legendary familiar. With his victory over Gitch, Seito has become popular among commoners and several nobles. CS and the commoners, who now call him our sword, secretly feed Seito as Louise is withholding food as his new punishment. He also learns why people call her Zero. To add to his troubles, Kirch, a noble from Germania, has chosen him as her next boyfriend. In a devious plan, she attempts to seduce him, although this fails when Louise finds out. After considering Seito's hidden talent with a sword, Louise drags him to town to buy him a sword. Kirch matches Louise's gift with a more impressive sword, which causes more conflict between Seito and Louise. Louise's sword later reveals itself to be the talking sword Derflinger. Osmond continues his harassment of his secretary Longueville. Siesta is forced into the service of Count Mott to be his mistress. Disgusted by the lack of regard that nobles have for commoners, Seito tries his best to rescue her. They make a deal where Count Mott asks for a particular family heirloom book from a Germania family. Coincidentally, it is Kirch's family, which was summoned from another world. Seito asks Kirch for the book, but Kirch wants him to date her. After refusing her demand, Seito attempts to take on Count Mott with Kirch's expensive sword, but his runes do not activate as it is an ornamental sword not meant for combat, and he struggles to lift it. Louise and the others arrive just in time to prevent Seito from being executed. Kirch agrees to give Count Mott the book in exchange for Siesta's freedom, and forgiving Seito for his offense. Seito catches a glimpse of the heirloom book, and is surprised to find that it is just an old porn magazine from Japan. After their return to the academy, Siesta kisses Seito on the cheek and thanks for his efforts. The exhibition of new familiars is a day away, and Louise is feeling rather depressed about it. Not only does Seito have nothing impressive to show, but this year the Princess of Tristan will be present, which makes the event more important. As night approaches, desperation sets in as Seito is unable to produce an act worthy of praise. A visitor to Louise's room turns out to be Princess Henrietta herself, and she explains how she and Louise are childhood friends. The next day, Seito performs a weak sword-swinging demonstration, only to be dragged off stage by Louise. They witness Falcott the sculptor attempting to break into the school's treasure vault using an earth golem. Louise tries to stop her with her magic, but her blast misses the golem and hits the tower wall, breaching the magic barrier to the vault. Tabitha and her dragon familiar, Sylphid, fly in to help, but are too late to prevent Falcott from stealing the fabled Staff of Destruction and making her escape. Worried that the princess may be blamed for Falcott's theft, Louise volunteers to go and catch her. Kirch and Tabitha volunteer as well. They travel to the place of Falcott's last sighting escorted by Longueville. Kirch, Tabitha, and Seito enter an empty house, where Tabitha discovers the hidden Staff of Destruction. Falcott's golem appears outside. Louise tries to fight the golem with some spells but fails. As she is about to be crushed, Seito rushes in to save her. Her confidence broken, Louise breaks into tears. Seito is moved by this and attacks the golem himself as Sylphid rescues the nobles. He uses Kirch's sword, but it breaks on contact with the golem. Derflinger calls on Seito to use him. Seito draws Derflinger and the runes on his hands glow again. He is able to slash the golem's legs, but they reform themselves. Louise tries to help using the Staff of Destruction, which Seito recognizes as M72 rocket launcher, and with his rune-enabled abilities, he fires it at the golem and destroys it. In the aftermath, Longueville claims the staff, and reveals herself to have been Falcott all along. She engineered the scenario to discover how to use the staff. She tries to kill the students with the staff, but nothing happens, as rocket launchers are single-use weapons. Sato knocks Falcon out. Later, Osmond reveals that 30 years previously, he was fighting a monster when a man from another world, an American soldier from the Vietnam War, used one of two staffs to save his life. After the man died, Osmond buried the man and kept the remaining staff. The school later holds a ball to celebrate, where Louise asks Sato to dance with her and thanks him for saving her. Henrietta congratulates Louise for capturing Falcon. She offers her hand to Sato, but Sato misunderstood and kisses her on the lips. Henrietta asks Louise and Sato to work undercover to determine if nobles are taking advantage of the commoners. Louise naively loses all of their money in a casino, where she was hoping to increase their funds. Refusing to ask Henrietta for more money, Sato and Louise find work at a tavern called Charming Fairy Inn run by Scarin and his daughter Jessica. Louise works as a waitress and Sato works as a dishwasher, where he is in close contact with Jessica much to Louise's displeasure. Scarin holds a contest for the waitresses. Whoever gets the most tips gets a large reward plus the chance to wear a special maid outfit. Louise is unable to earn any tips because of her temper until an arrogant noble enters the bar. After bringing him to justice, the noble runs off, but leaves a large bribe for Louise. The tip enables Louise to win the contest. Even though she and Sato now have to leave, Louise wears the special maid outfit just for him. It's summer vacation, and many students are traveling back to their families. Kirch goes along with Tabitha to her home. As a result, Louise and Sato are alone for once. Kirch learns that Tabitha's real name is Charlotte, Princess of Gallia, and that she has a tragic past in which her mother drank a potion that drove her insane. Her reason for returning home is revealed to be a mission from her uncle, the King of Gallia. Meanwhile, Montmorency is upset that Gitch has been flirting with other girls, makes aphrodisiac, a kind of love potion, and tries to slip it into Gitch's drink. Sato finds a large cooking pot that was about to be thrown away, and fashions it into a hot tub later at night, similar to those in Japan. While Sato relaxes in the tub, Siesta passes by and joins him, much to his embarrassment. Louise sees the two together and becomes so frustrated that she interrupts Gitch and Montmorency, and accidentally consumes the drink with the love potion in it. When Sato returns to her room, Louise gets flustered and falls completely in love with him. Louise continues her lovey-dovey behavior towards Sato, which freaks him out, as well as causes a misunderstanding with Siesta. In desperation, Sato demands that Montmorency create an antidote, but she refuses to help until he threatens to blackmail her into helping. Sato learned from Siesta that emotion-changing potions are illegal. Since the antidote requires the tear of a water elemental, Montmorency and Gitch lead Sato and the love-struck Louise to Lagdorian Lake, where they make contact with the water spirit who is flooding the land, so that she can search for her stolen precious treasure, but she is being hindered by magic users. Sato volunteers to deal with them, and he and Gitch fight the intruders who turn out to be Kirch and Tabitha. Sato promises to find whatever the water spirit is lost. The spirit trusts his word as Gandalfer, and gives him the antidote. Having taken care of the love potion, Louise and Sato receive a new mission. In order to strengthen her country's alliance, Princess Henrietta is to be wed to the Emperor of Germania. Louise and Sato must recover an indiscreet letter that Henrietta wrote to Prince Wales of Albion, or the wedding will be cancelled. The princess is unable to see the prince in person because Albion is in a state of civil war. Gitch overhears the conversation and volunteers to aid the princess, and Henrietta accepts, much to Louise and Sato's surprise. Before leaving, Sato learns about Gandalf and legendary void magic from Colbert, as well as a story of two dragons. On the day of departure, their escort, Wards, captain of the Griffin Squadron, arrives. It turns out he is also Louise's fiancé, and Sato grows jealous of him. Later, Durflinger talks to Sato about Gandalfer, and how only Gandalfer can wield Durflinger. Wards proposes to Louise then, at dinner, asks Sato to spar with him. Wards wins easily and mocks Sato's promise to protect Louise, leaving Sato depressed. That evening, Louise and Wards board the ship after convincing her that the Gitch and Sato have returned home. He persists in his courtship, and Louise accepts his proposal. In truth, the boys have been delayed by the sudden appearance of Falcon and her golem. They are saved by Kirch and Tabitha, who showed up on Sylphid. Sato figures out that Wards and Falcon were working together, and Louise is in trouble. Wards and Louise arrive in Albion, the floating continent, where they meet with Prince Wales. Louise delivers the letter, then Wales gives a reply letter to her that she is meant to retrieve, and learns of the power behind the uprising of nobles in Albion, the Reconquista. Their mission supposedly completed, Wards insists that they get married in Albion. He reveals himself as a member of the Reconquista, and is a threat to Wales. Louise tries to refuse, but one of Ward's allies, Cromwell, arrives with the water spirit's stolen ring, and forces her to consent using mind control. The marriage proceeds with Wales officiating and is nearly complete when Sato bursts into the church and snaps Louise out of her trance. The marriage ceremony is ruined. Wards kills Wales, steals the letter from Louise, and tries to kill Sato. However, Ward's treatment of Louise angers Sato, and he is able to unlock his abilities as Gandalf and fully utilized Derflinger. He defeats Ward's magic who flees, but not before bringing the church down on Louise and Sato. The two of them are rescued by Tabitha and the others, and Sylphid flies everyone home. Sato, holding Louise in his arms, kisses her. Louise informs Henrietta of Wales' death, and the princess's wedding is cancelled. Louise also warns Osmond about the Reconquista. Osmond then tells her about void magic and Gandalf. After another argument with Louise, Sato accompanies Siesta to her home village of Talbs to find a dragon. Louise and others follow them, and they locate the rare dragon, which Siesta's family has kept as an heirloom. Sato finds a tombstone with a Japanese epitaph on it. The dragon turns out to be an A6M0 fighter, a Japanese aircraft. It is revealed that Siesta's great-grandfather was an IJN pilot from World War II, and that he was magically transported to Halkajinya just as Sato was. Colbert explains that 2 dragons had flown during a solar eclipse, but one disappeared. He suggests that the timing of the second pilot, Siesta's great-grandfather, was off and that the solar eclipse ended before the second pilot was able to fly through the portal. Sato concludes that the other pilot returned home, and this is his chance to return home as well. As they bring the plane back to school, Albion declares war on Tristan, wanting to use the country as a base from which they can conquer the rest of the continent, and plan to launch their attack in 3 days during the next solar eclipse. Sato tells Louise that he wants to return home during the upcoming solar eclipse, and he gets angry when she acts as if she doesn't care. A war between Albion and Tristan is deemed inevitable. Henrietta assembles a military force that conscripts the boys from the academy. Louise walks in on a sleeping Sato, whereupon she says goodbye. The next morning, Sato wakes to find a letter in which Louise has written, "You're fired. Just go wherever you want." Louise decides to join the princess in the war. Sato gets in his Zero fighter, while Henrietta advances with the Tristan military to intercept the invading Albion force at the village of Talbs. Instead of flying straight into the eclipse, Sato attacks Albion's dragon squadrons, who are unable to keep up with the plane's speed. Sato runs out of bullets, and is attacked by wards on a wind dragon. Louise jumps from Sylpha to Sato's plane. Tabitha, Kirch, and Gitch together break down Falca's golem, and Falca flees for good. At the thought of Sato being harmed, Louise finally makes a connection with Sato, and unlocks her void magic for the first time, casting a powerful spell known as Explosion, which destroys the entirety of Albion's aerial force, including wards. After the battle, with the solar eclipse past and the Zero fighter nearly destroyed, Sato and Louise sit by the plane's wreckage, where they have an argument once again, and end up kissing. Elsewhere, Cromwell tries to hypnotize Kirch and Tabitha with the Ring of Andivari, but Gitch knocks him unconscious. Later, the 4 aristocrats are awarded medals by Henrietta, and Tabitha is given the Water Spirit's ring to fulfill the promise to return it. Louise is so excited about her medal that she rushes to show it to Sato, only to find him chatting with Siesta. In a typical fashion, Louise overreacts and punishes Sato. Sato is overjoyed to find himself back in Japan, having returned in the Zero fighter. When he finds that Louise is not with him, Sato realizes that returning without her has no meaning anymore. The fighter crashes and Sato awakens to find that it was all a dream, and he is still in Halkajinya. He hugs Louise, grateful for her presence, which embarrasses her. She explains that she's grateful that he stayed behind for her sake, including letting him sleep in her bed. The next day, she gives Sato a pair of magical glasses whose gems blink whenever he so much as looks at another girl. She, of course, reacts in a typical fashion, and punishes him for his indiscretions. Later that day, while watching newly crowned Queen Henrietta parade through the streets of the town, Sato's glasses start blinking and Louise overreacts again, leading to Sato's imprisonment as a suspected assassin. Louise attempts to clear the misunderstanding, but is turned away by Agnes, who leads the palace musketeer force. Henrietta meets with Sato in his cell, and states that Tristan needs his legendary familiar power. Cromwell has been killed in his cell, and someone within Tristan is likely responsible. The perpetrator earlier revealed to have obtained the Ring of Andivari, which Tabitha was to return to the Water Spirit. Henrietta then allows Louise to rush into his arms, relieved that Sato is unhurt. On returning home under escort, Agnes tells them that any future messages from the Queen will be passed on using the codename Zero. She then tells Sato that she will overlook his indiscretion. Back in their room, Louise insists Sato explain the misunderstanding that Agnes mentioned and returns to her previous treatment on him. The next morning, Agnes rushes in to find Louise holding a rider's crop and sitting astride a beaten and half-naked Sato. Embarrassed, she retreats momentarily, then returns to inform them that Henrietta has been kidnapped. The supposedly dead Wales appears and takes Henrietta to Albion. He uses his vow from their earlier days to convince her into following him. The musketeer force chases whales, but he repulses them with his magic. Sato and Louise go to rescue Henrietta by using the Zero Fighter with Kirch and Tabitha following them. Everyone then confronts Wales at Lagdorian Lake as he combines Henrietta's magic with his. Henrietta refuses to leave Wales' side. Wales, later revealed to be revived and controlled by Cromwell's Ring of Andivari, is defeated by Louise with a Dispel spell. Wales is released from the control of the ring and asks Henrietta to make a new vow that she will move on and fall in love with someone else before dying again. When all the boys from the school leave for the upcoming war in Albion, Julio Chesser, a knight and priest transfers to the school from Romalia, instantly becomes popular with the girls and shows an interest in Louise. Agnes and her musketeer force burst into the school and force the girls out of Mr. Colbert's class to train in case of rebellion. Julio challenges Sato to a fight in which the winner gets to kiss Louise. Sato receives special training from Agnes, but Louise shows up and attacks Sato in a jealous rage yet again. He fights against Julio the next day with wooden swords, but Julio loses to him on purpose, which angers Sato. Later, Henrietta tells them of the approaching war with Albion and their leader, Governor Sheffield. Louise's eldest sister Leonor drags her, Sato, and Siesta back to the Valier mansion, where Louise is announced to be engaged to a duke. Louise tries to prove to her family that she isn't the Zero anymore, but cannot reveal that she is a user of Void. Meanwhile, Louise looks for Sato, goes into his room, and kisses Siesta, whom she has mistaken for Sato. Sato goes to talk to her at night, but instead finds a Leonor who beats him. The next day, when Louise's father forbids her from going into a war, she gets upset and flees to a children's boat. Louise's gentle and kind sister, Kalea, convinces Sato to stay by Louise's side. Sato finds her and confesses his true feelings to Louise, then makes out with her, fights his way out of the Valier residence, and heads back to school with Louise. She doesn't believe him about what happened and beats him again, while Siesta tells herself she is the only one for Sato. Louise's sisters move in and make Sato do all the work. At night, Siesta makes a pass at Sato when Louise shows up. Just when Louise is about to strike him with a newer whip, an explosion occurs. A thief has stolen something belonging to Henrietta and Wales from the principal's office, and Osmond pinpoints the woman with the magic seal on her chest. Sato and Julio try to do it secretly, but Louise finds Sato and tries to hurt him again. Then a commotion in Kalea's room gets their attention. The thief is found out to be Michelle, Agnes's lieutenant. And when everything is done and over with, just because Sato didn't tell Louise what he was ordered to do along with other things that were justifiable, she beats him with her new whip out of spite. Agnes gives Henrietta evidence on a conspirator in Tristan, and devises a secret plan to verify it. Sato and Louise were ordered to be at Scarin's Inn to receive further instructions. They take their previous positions and costumes back and are surprised by Julio's appearance. Sato runs into Henrietta, who asks him to be her bodyguard as she poses as a commoner, when she faked being kidnapped in order to lure out an Albion spy. Louise is left behind, since she would just get in the way. In the rain, Sato and Henrietta evade detection from the soldiers who are searching for the Queen by behaving like sweethearts, while Louise unexpectedly learns of the details of the Queen's mission when she accidentally runs into Agnes, who had been following the spy's courier. In a theater in town, while Scarin and his girls are in the middle of performing a play, Henrietta, Julio, and the musketeer force confront Lishman, the traitorous finance minister, and his army. Lishman escapes into an underground passageway, but Agnes follows and kills him. The aftermath proves predictable when Louise smells Henrietta's perfume on Sato, while Sato also asks Louise what she'd been doing. Henrietta is pressured to sign a declaration of war against Albion. News of a victorious battle for the Tristan and Germania allied forces reaches a town that Louise and Sato are currently in. Sato finds a sailor uniform on sale at a clothes merchant's shop, but buys it for Siesta instead of Louise. At the academy, Louise and Sato join Agnes and Julio as they explore a secret archive hidden beneath the school, to which Agnes was denied permission. Agnes wishes to obtain information that regards the burning of her hometown of d'Angleterre. Leonor is picked to open the lock to the entrance. As Mr. Colbert and the group heads further down, they are joined by Siesta, who is wearing the sailor uniform. Because Louise lacked the chest size to make the uniform look good, Louise blows a part of the cave in the way they came. With little to do but move further, the group finds the archives and is sent to look for the records. When Siesta trips and makes a mess of the books, Leonor returns them to their proper place with magic, which triggers the archive security system, and begins to bring the bookshelves to a close. Agnes finally finds the information, but a part of the page that lists the person who led the attack is missing. The group narrowly escapes the collapsing of the bridge that led them to the archives. Upon realizing that Louise had blocked their way out, Julio grants Sato permission to have intimate moments with Siesta. She is happy to oblige, and then Louise watches and prepares to blow something else up. When Sato points out that the cave which she blew up earlier is in the opposite direction, Louise tells him to shut up and blows them up. At night, Alina puts Louise in jail to prevent her from going into war. Even Sato and Colbert agree and don't wish to see more people get hurt. Sheffield sends hired mercenaries to make a surprise attack on the Magic Academy, to take all of the female members of royal families hostage. Tabitha noticed it and warns people. The musketeer force surrounds the academy, but the mercenaries counteract. Sato releases Louise, and their friends plan on how they will rescue the hostages, as it will take too long for the reinforcements to come from the palace. Agnes fights Benubiro, the vice captain. It is discovered Benubiro is one of those who attacked Angleterre and burnt it to the ground 20 years ago. Mr. Colbert and Sato devise a plan to enter the building to save the hostages. Benubiro explains to Agnes how his captain ruthlessly burned Angleterre to ashes. The team uses their combined magic to enter the building. During the attack, Benubiro recognizes Colbert, who is in fact his former captain, Snake of the Flame. The two begin a heated battle. Agnes becomes furious and charges Colbert. Benubiro fires a lethal fireball towards Agnes to stop her from interrupting them, and Colbert pushes her away from the blast, and is struck in the crossfire. Agnes takes revenge for her town upon Benubiro and kills him. Agnes recognizes that Colbert was also the person who saved her. Mr. Colbert in his last moments explains what had occurred on that fateful night. He had been given orders to destroy Angleterre as it had been reported to be struck with a deadly plague. After discovering there was no plague, he found a girl, Agnes, the only survivor, and he carried her to safety. Kirch, Louise, and Sato arrive. Agnes is still infuriated, and she holds up her sword to strike a final blow to Colbert, but he dies before she can do so. Louise and Sato are saddened by the death of their teacher, as they read a letter written by him, saying how much Colbert wanted to see Sato's world, whereas Agnes is still undecided about ever forgiving him. Louise and Sato are sent to Albion and assigned a special mission by Princess Henrietta to disable the enemy's line of defense, the city of South Gotha. The plan is to have Louise's void magic prevent the engaging battle and deaths of innocent people during the crossfire. Louise accepts, but Sato is reluctant to join because of what he had been told by the late Mr. Colbert. During the assault, Louise is unable to perform her void magic. They are attacked by air fighters, and the Zero fighter is forced to abort the mission, then land in a snowfall. With no news from Louise and Sato, the Queen agrees to send their army head-on into battle. Meanwhile, Louise debates how to explain their failure to the Queen, while Sato carries her on his back. That night, they stay in a snow cave. After Sato suggests that they get naked and stay warm by contact, Louise knocks him unconscious. Realizing that he may die of hypothermia, Louise unbuttons her shirt and lays across Sato. Sato recalls nothing of that night when he wakes up. Sheffield learns of a flying dragon made of steel, the crash-landed Zero fighter plane, and arranges to have it recovered. Sato and Louise are attacked by an enemy air fighter, but having been injured, he quickly collapses. The young man's name is Henry Stalford, Henry Plus, voiced by Wataru Hitano, someone who dissolved his engagement to go to war. Sato carries him and explains that his philosophy is to fight for your love, not your honor, and Louise and Sato both agree that Henry should try to return to his ex-fiancée. As the Albion troops arrive to recover the plane and kill the enemy, Henry rejoins them, but doesn't tell them about Louise and Sato, who are hiding in the nearby trees. The two are rescued by Julio on his dragon. Henry hopes to see the two again someday. Henrietta is relieved the two are okay, but Sato is irritated that Louise is still rather attached to her noble status. Henrietta's forces enter Gothia and claim it as their own. Meanwhile, Louise gets mad at Sato for not understanding her, while Sato thinks the same thing about her. A while later, Henrietta asks for Louise and Sato to scout the enemy forces. As Louise sees Sato, who is fixing the plane, she asks Julio to do the mission with her instead. As he agrees, Sato comes and is confused with what they are doing. Filled with fury, Louise orders Julio to go soon, and he did. Albion's dragon forces attack them, but they manage to get away. As they come back, Louise is advised by Derflinger to exchange roles with Sato for a day. Sato unexpectedly meets Siesta and her uncle and cousin, who are revealed to be Scarin and Jessica. The gang discovers Louise in a cat costume. She lies to Sato, saying it was for Julio. As Gicho arrives and shows his Medal of Honor for coming back from the dead, no one believed him. Sato becomes frustrated with Louise about her arrogant ways of being loyal to the Queen. Siesta takes Sato to a room alone and kisses him, then gives him a sleeping potion as a gift. Meanwhile, Sheffield uses the Ring of Andivari to contaminate the water system, which causes Henrietta's army to start a rebellion. They soon attack Henrietta, which causes the death of Henrietta's general, Porch. Sato rescues Louise from the rebellion. Later, Louise is secretly approached by Henrietta's advisor Mazarin, and asked to use her void magic to hold the enemy off while the Queen and everybody prepares their evacuation. She accepts. Knowing it's a suicide mission since Albion has assembled an army of 70,000, Louise plans to send Sato away to safety, but first expresses her desire to marry. They both buy 2 magical flowers. Knowing of Lee's plan, Sato uses the sleeping potion on her after they wed. Lee's passes out before she can tell him that she still and has always loved him, and Sato entrusts her to Julio, asking him to take care of her as he takes her place and opposes Albion's advancing troops. Despite his valiant efforts, Sato eventually falls on the battlefield and eyes all the Tristan ships, including the ones which Lee's and Henrietta are on, safely escape. Back at the Tristan Academy, everyone mourns the loss of their hero Sato. Lee's has collapsed in grief at Sato's death. However, suddenly the magical flower that is connected to Sato comes back to life. Lee's runs out and meets Sato, who is very much alive, and tells her that a fairy saved and revived him. However, when he mentions that the fairy had huge breasts, Lee's flies into a jealous rage, and shoots explosion spells at Sato once again. Thank you for watching until the very end. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe for more.